Welcome to the ninth draw of the 2019 U-18 Canadian National Championships. My name is Dustin Mickish, and joined beside me is Laura Walker. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are competing this week on the traditional lands of the Treaty 6 nations, including the Blackfoot, Cree, Dene, Gros Ventre, Métis, Nakota Sioux, and Saulteaux. Indigenous people were joined by settlers and pioneers who together built this great community of Strathcona County.
We have many games going on here in Sherwood Park this afternoon. On Sheet A, Prince Edward Island will play Alberta host. That's a boys game. On Sheet B, also a boys game, Newfoundland and Labrador will play New Brunswick. On Sheet C, our feature game, the Ontario boys will play the Quebec boys. On Sheet D, Northwest Territories plays British Columbia girls. And Sheet E, also a girls game, Saskatchewan versus Nova Scotia. Sheet F, Prince Edward Island versus the Alberta host girls. Sheet G, we'll see Quebec play Manitoba girls. Sheet H, British Columbia will play Northern Ontario boys. And on Sheet I, we have a girls game. Newfoundland and Labrador will play New Brunswick.
So we have a great game on hand for us this afternoon, Ontario versus Quebec. Currently, Quebec coming in with a 2-3 record, and Ontario coming in with a 3-2 record. So an important game this afternoon on hand for us today.
Very important. This is a big game to keep both of these teams alive for the championship pool.
For sure, with 2 round-robin games left, it is a very important game for Quebec and also Ontario, for Ontario to improve to 4-2 and Quebec to also try and improve to 3-3. So here we have Quebec's last stone draw, hard sweep, and it just bites the forefoot. Followed by Quebec's second draw, just slipping into the back four.
And that was good enough to earn them the hammer here in this game.
So Team Ontario, here we have Coach Jeff Van Bodegum, Chris Ingalls, Trey Cowell, Cameron Van Bodegum, Sam Hastings, and Dylan Nepage.
And Team Quebec, their coach is Jean-Francois Gauthier, followed by their lead, Jacob Lebrec. Zachary Pedneau at second. Their third is Anthony Pedneau, and skipped by Raphael Patry.
Getting underway here in the first, and Ontario throwing the first rock of the game with Quebec holding the hammer. What might we expect here today, Laura, here in the first?
We might see them play a bit of an open end just to, get their feet wet and make sure that they're comfortable with these ice conditions. They've played a few games here now, but ice can change throughout the week, so they'll just want to make sure that they have a good handle on the ice before putting too many rocks in play.
So here we have lead Trey Cowell. Trey's hometown is Craighurst, and his curling club is the Coldwater and District Curling Club. He is currently in grade 12 Eastview Secondary School in Barrie, Ontario, and has been curling for 8 years.
Just slipping into the rings there, it looked like Team Ontario did actually want to throw up that centerline guard and get after it right off the hop.
Yeah, it looks like Team Ontario not afraid to try and mix it up here in the first, and we did see a little bit on earlier in the week in our early broadcast teams putting lots of rocks in play in the first end, but just like this morning, they did run it up and down the first couple ends, so it'll be interesting to see what Team Ontario and Quebec do.
That rollout there from the Quebec lead, Jacob Lebrec, that was huge. That now allows Ontario to throw the centerline guard as they had hoped to on the first one. Had he hung around in the rings there, even a small biter, you probably would have seen Team Ontario hit that rock. Great chance now to put some pressure on Quebec early in this game.
Yeah, Laura, can you tell me a little bit why it is important to hit and stay as opposed to maybe rolling out and giving the team a chance?
Yeah, so you know in the first end here, both teams aren't going to want to take too many chances. They might not know the ice all that well. So even those little biters hanging on, you'll see the other team go ahead and hit that. By rolling out, you let them play the draw. And the other thing that does is you let them get their draw weight. So obviously, Ontario lead a little bit heavy on his first one, and now he has no problem putting that rock in the free guard zone. Anytime you can give the other team a free draw to the rings, you don't like to do that.
Definitely an advantage throwing a no pressure draw on the first end for sure.
Jacob Lebrecq is 16 years old. He's been curling for 7 years, started curling in elementary school. Also played football in the past, so a dual sport athlete.
Hard sweep here. This is second, Cameron Van Bodegum, just racking on the guard here. Cameron his hometown is Barrie, the Coldwater Curling Club, and is currently a grade 12 student at Eastview Secondary School and has been curling for 10 years.
You see the sweepers here really try to go to get it past that guard, just over curling. We did hear this team talk before the game about the rotation that they had to put on the stone here in arena ice. This is their first time playing on arena ice, so it's quite a bit of an adjustment how much curl you'll get.
Yeah, we did talk with the coaches prior to the game, and they did say it has been a little bit of an adjustment compared to the curling ice that they normally play on, just because it curls a little bit more. So they did want to be cautious of how much rotation they are putting on their rock to make sure their rocks are not over curling.
Quebec coming in behind that corner guard, but a little bit deep. So it does leave a double here for the Ontario second. Cameron will want to make this one, make up for that first mistake there.
Definitely, for sure. In talking with Coach Jeff prior to the game, he did mention that his keys for the game were to keep just playing their own game and play really happy with lots of smiles, and to also put some pressure on Team Quebec with lots of rocks in play. So I would not be surprised to see Team Ontario, like they did where they were trying to throw the guard in the first end, do that throughout this game.
Yeah, unfortunately there, just a little bit of a mistake. Kind of rolled the wrong way. Even if he didn't make the double, had he rolled in behind that guard, would have taken that back yellow rock. It's kind of out of play, but by rolling away, you now let Quebec split the rings. Great opportunity for 2 points here in this first end.
As well, we did talk to the coach of Team Quebec, Jean-Francois Gauthier, and he did say that it is pretty different than the curling club they normally play on, that opposed to taking ice in the middle 8-foot, that they have been taking ice middle 12-foot here, so similar, want to watch for how much rotation they are putting on, and that this ice is a little bit quicker than what they're normally used to, so draw placement will be very important.
And that's something that we just saw there from Zachary Pedneau, the Quebec second, trying to draw to the wings and really over curling and coming up short. So that often will happen on arena ice. If you don't throw that extra rotation, you'll see your rocks die a little bit harder and the weight will come off of them. So you'll need to really be careful you're taking enough ice and putting enough rotation on them so that they aren't coming off on you.
Nice shot here to sit 2 here in the first end.
This is the Quebec third, Anthony Pedneau, the brother of a second Zachary. Anthony's 18 years old and has been curling for 9 years. Like his brother, also started curling at the elementary school. It's great to see that the schools are bringing the kids out to curling, and just made a beautiful hit and roll there behind that guard.
That is a very nice hit and roll that will put a little bit of pressure on Team Ontario. Looks like you can see a little bit from the hack. Maybe look to play a little bit of a quieter weight to get that curl. And here we have third, Sam Hastings. His hometown is Chelsea, and the Chelsea Curling Club, as well as the Coldwater District Curling Club, and is currently 17 years of age and in grade 12.
No problem getting around the guard there. You'll see lots of curl on this ice. John Wall and his ice crew have done a fantastic job out here.
Yeah, John Wall took over the building last Tuesday, so about a week and a half ago, and they have put on some excellent ice conditions here. The arena and the curling club being very similar from talking to the players, with lots of curl and very quick conditions.
And I'm not sure the average curling fan would know how difficult it is to actually make those conditions the same between the arena and the curling club. The buildings are completely different and you're dealing with completely different conditions. So kudos to John and his crew. Saw an over curl there from Team Quebec, just not able to hold it. I think that'll probably be the story of this game, is more over curls than under curls. I'm sure you've seen that throughout the week as you've been commentating here, Dustin.
Yes, I've commentated a few games here and have seen quite a few over curls, more so than under curls, so will be interesting to watch if that is indeed the case again for this game. Quebec does have the hammer here in the first end, but possibly could be looking at 3 Ontario counters on the Quebec Skip's first rock. And here we have Skip, Dylan DePage. Curling out of the Coldwater District Curling Club, 17 years of age, in grade 12.
Ontario discussed a couple of options here, one being a draw or a guard, and the other one being the hit that they've decided to play here in the end. The reason they're hitting, even though they've got shot stone over there, is that, as we saw, it's tough to put the perfect guard on this ice. It looked like it was fully buried and they were still able to come around and get at it. So they're just going to elect to hit this one and make sure that they are holding Quebec to no more than 1 point here. It's not there, it can't score.
Exactly. And a nice hit there from Team Ontario. Team Quebec will look to play the hit and roll over there, maybe potentially set up a jam situation.
Yeah, Team Ontario might have wanted to look at actually rolling that stone away or even out of the rings. It's pretty far back, unlikely that it's going to score at this point, but now by leaving it where it was, behind that wide yellow corner guard, you do leave this hit and roll for Quebec skip Raphael Patry. So if he makes it good, you're not going to be able to remove it.
And here we see the first rock from the Quebec skip.
Raphael is 18 years old, and he's been curling for 9 years.
Hitting and rolling out on that one. Yeah, Laura, we see at these events, a lot of these athletes have been curling for a number of years despite their young age. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the age of the athletes in this event.
Yeah, so with the U-18 championships, obviously they're all 18 years old or under, and it's an amazing thing that Curling Canada has done to introduce this event. It hasn't always existed like this, to have this national championship on this kind of big stage for these young players. Just really fantastic for them to have that opportunity and get them prepared for when they do get to the U21 nationals and then into men's and women's play. But it seems like these players are starting younger and younger all the time. Hopefully they're playing other sports too, not just curling.
We have seen on our player bios that a lot of these are multi-sport athletes playing volleyball, baseball, football, a lot of other sports, so that is also nice to see.
Absolutely. Curling's a tough sport on your body. If you're not playing other things and taking care of it and honestly just having fun elsewhere, you're going to get burnt out pretty quickly.
Yeah, curling is a very long season, often starting in August or even September now, and does go till April as of now, so it is definitely a long sports season.
splitting the rings and forcing Team Quebec into a draw for their single point.
Looks like we'll need about full 8 foot on this rock.
It does look like he's taking the ice to actually use that backing a little bit of the Ontario stone that was just thrown. Something they'll want to be a little bit careful with. Often when you're throwing to backing, you tend to overthrow it, knowing that you have the rock back there. So something they'll want to keep in mind.
The line on this one looks close, yeah. And that is a great shot from the Quebec skip here in the first, and drawing against 3 Ontario counters, and they will take their single point heading into the second end. Here we see the replay using the backing a little bit, made a bit thrown about back 12, but with the nice line, does use the backing.
Now we'll be able to get a bit of a sense of how Team Quebec likes to play. We saw in the first end Team Ontario right from the first rock trying to throw that center line guard and put some rocks in play. So we'll see how Quebec plays.
Super's calling it 2, so throwing up that center guard.
Although Quebec did score in that last end, that was a win for Team Ontario. They forced the opposition to a single point when they had the hammer. Now Team Ontario gets the last rock here in these even ends, which is so important to try to jockey for position and have the hammer in the last end.
And it looks like Trey Cowell will look to come around the center guard just thrown. Quebec did talk about their draw placement, so I can see this being a very aggressive end. Ontario saying this one's a little bit heavy.
Nice weight there, but does leave it a little bit open, allowing Team Quebec to chase this stone, try to hit it out of play. We see with the curl on this ice, you pretty much have to be fully buried, and the guard has to be quite tight for it not to be accessible by the other team.
For sure, and throwing that right weight on this shot is very important, as it looks like it is curling a little bit. Looks like this one is on the guard, so might try and split this one in.
That was the way to miss that shot. If you're going to miss, a big part of this sport is missing shots the right way and making sure you get something out of everything. And they opened up the shot stone and also rolled into the rings, which forces Ontario to play a hit and stick, which we've seen on this ice is not necessarily the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, with the amount of curl here, definitely not the easiest thing. Definitely the tolerance on that shot was to tap it into the rings. But Ontario will have a chance to sit 2, which they successfully do with a nice nose hit.
Zachary Pedneau is just 15 years old, so one of the younger players on our sheet here.
15 is definitely a young age to be at a national championship, but winning the provincial title obviously earned his right to be here this week in Sherwood Park.
Great experience for these young players.
And more eligibility, obviously, with possibly 2 or 3 more years to potentially get back to this event.
Yeah, that experience helps so much. Anytime you can go to an event a second time, you know what to expect, you know how to prepare, you even know what to pack. All of those little things make such a big difference to how comfortable you can feel here in these big events.
And here we have second Cam Van Bodegen. Sweepers backing right off this one, might be a little bit heavy. And this one will slip through the rings.
Sometimes see this arena ice actually slide a little bit better to those wings. Sometimes a little bit less curl, which means the rock has less distance to travel, so it travels a little bit further. So these teams will just want to make sure they keep that in mind, give the times back to their players if they're timing the rocks. Remind everyone to maybe throw a little bit less than you think you need. Looks like it's great sweeping ice out there.
Yeah, the tolerance usually definitely to be a little bit lighter.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if Ontario had thrown up a guard instead of coming into the rings, they at least have something to work with here in this end. But by going straight through the rings now, they're grasping at straws here with this wide yellow corner guard.
We definitely also notice on arena ice, if you play in the same path or spot, multiple rocks in a row, it gets that little bit extra faster each and every time.
Tends to get a little bit straighter too when you throw the same path, and that's why it gets faster. So here we have another draw to the wings. Sweepers are right off of it, which should help it to die a little bit. Just grab some newer ice here. We haven't played to this side quite as much.
This one will stop for a biter in the back 12. So Quebec will attempt to come around the corner guard also, or potentially maybe freeze to the back one. That rock is about half open.
Yeah, they did have two options there because you can see it and there is so much curl. You could try to actually hit it. However, it's tough to stick around back there, and even if you do stick around, you're leaving something for Ontario to freeze to, so Quebec will just try to get in there first.
And it looks like this rock will be coming into the back 4. Nice weight from the Quebec. Third. Ontario third here, attempting to play the freeze. This is third Sam Hastings.
Great opportunity here for Ontario. You never like coming around your opposition's corner guards, which Quebec was kind of forced to do in that scenario. Now leaving a freeze for Team Ontario. This one maybe looks a little bit heavy. Again, sweepers right off of it.
Like we talked about a couple minutes ago about each and every stone thrown in that path. It gets that little bit extra faster. Also maybe playing a little bit of a factor.
Anthony Pedno will now just look to split the rings here. Separate those two stones as much as possible. Quebec will really want to make sure they get this one behind the tee line. If they leave it higher in the rings, you could leave a double for Ontario to sit 2 and maybe 3 if that back biter is in.
Here we see all 3 sweepers coming up to sweep this one. It's coming up a little bit short. Laura, do you think that Ontario could tap and roll over to sit a couple? Or do you think like the freeze here?
No, I love the tap and roll, especially if that back red one is in. It's a little bit tough to tell from here whether it is in or not, but if it is in and you have an opportunity to sit 3 with only 2 rocks to come from the other team, that's a huge opportunity for Team Ontario. And with how much curl there is, obviously, we know that those shots are there. By playing this freeze, you kind of take those back 2 rocks out of play. It's unlikely that they're going to score by just playing the straight freeze.
So Some great brushing from the Ontario front end. That is an excellent freeze from the third, Sam.
You know what? I completely take back everything I just said. Making it like he did there, keeping the angle on the right side as we're looking at this screen here. Those back two rocks can score, and it's really tough now for Team Quebec to do anything with that stone. So if you're going to make it absolutely perfect, I love it. If he had over-curled it all, unfortunately, it would have been pretty useless, but he made a great shot. So
Very much agree. And here we have Quebec Skip with his first rock here in the second end. Just getting by the guard, removes 4 rocks from play and rolls behind the corner guard. What a great shot from the Quebec Skip.
Raphael has here that his who he admires in curling is Kevin Cooey. I'm not surprised now seeing him throw that kind of weight and with that kind of accuracy. That's a great shot. He hit it exactly where he needed to. Had to come quite close to that guard in order to hit it in such a way that it would take those back two as well. So great shot. And it's fully buried now as well in front of the tee line.
That is just a tremendous shot from the Skip. It's always a little bit deflating as the other team when the other team makes a shot like that, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also where if you're Team Ontario, you just need to say kudos to the other team and brush it off and now go back and make another great shot. There's no reason that you can't still get your 2 here. There's a couple guards in play.
For sure, with a nice freeze here, would force Team Quebec possibly to another run back or a difficult shot. Team Ontario did just throw this exact same draw. Oh, just getting by the guard.
Very nice. With that Quebec stone being in front of the tee line, it was pretty tough for Ontario to actually just come and freeze to it. So you see here they actually move it and tap it, and that allows them to sit shot with a great angle in front of that yellow stone. Some great curling shots here these last few rocks this end.
Yeah, early in the game, teams not afraid to make the big one, and they definitely are so far early. Looks like Team Quebec here attempting to maybe possibly line up the run back on this one, as it is about a quarter to half buried. Maybe feeling like this is a chance to get a blank or even possibly sit 2.
Yeah, and with this run back, you can hit this rock anywhere, you know, from a little bit high to, there's lots of options here. You have a lot more margin for error to still make the shot, whereas with the pick that they were looking at before, coming by the guard and trying to straight pick it, you know, you have about a 1-inch margin for error on that shot. So smart play here. They can't really draw anywhere. And it's a fairly short run back too. You see it's about a broom length there. Pretty much a nose hit.
Yeah, and after his first one, I have no doubt that he will be close on this one. Playing the in-turn at this one. What a great shot.
Makes no mistake there.
I think the Quebec skip is coming for Kevin Cooey after these shots early.
Kevin Cooey in the making here.
Now looks like Team Ontario will draw for their single here in the second end.
Ontario did just throw a draw, so should have a pretty good idea of the speed, although they are going into a bit of a different path than what they just threw. So it's important for the sweepers to give some information to their skip here before he throws this rock as to how the paths will compare.
Definitely, and we did see in the draw the button that he did throw the in turn, so this will be a little bit of a different path. Sweepers cleaning this one. Looks close. That is a nice draw from Dylan, the skip of Team Ontario, and that will be a single point, and it'll be a tie game going into the third end. Getting underway here in the third end, the Ontario team looking to throw up the tight center guard. There is not a ton of rotation on this rock, so it should curl up. It's maybe a slight overcurl.
We did see in the first end there was a guard that was just off of the center line. It was quite easy to access any rock that was behind there. Usually you'll see it a little bit tougher to hit a rock that's right on the center line behind a guard. So Ontario will want to chat a little bit and figure out how they're going to keep those rocks from overcurling, because the position of those early stones is so key to how the rest of the end goes. That rock's a little bit more useful to Quebec than it is to Ontario at this point.
For sure, yeah, kind of a little bit of an off center guard, so Quebec definitely is using it, and they make a very nice one here, drawing into the top four. Yeah, Ontario could probably do one of two things. Either maybe throw a little bit more rotation, or Skip Dillon could maybe just give a little bit more ice for them.
Yeah, often what happens as a skip, and I'm very guilty of it myself, is you're down there at the other end, and all you can see is, well, they were a little bit tighter, they were a little bit soft or whatever, but when you see the same thing happening over and over and over again, it's a pattern, and you just change something about it, whether it be more ice or call your lead down for a chat to talk about how they're going to throw it. But that's where someone else on the team might want to speak up and say, okay, we've overcurled in this spot about 6 times now, let's just change the broom, rather than everyone trying to figure it out on their own, which can lead to some double corrections.
For sure, and if the members on the team do throw a different number of rotation, maybe Dylan might be icy maybe for himself, and if another player throws less, that could be a possible reason for the overcurl. But no problem on that one. Nice shot.
Quebec lead, Jacob Lebrec will try to follow him down. You can see Jacob has quite a bit more rotation on his stones than Ontario's lead did. So that's what is allowing him to roll away. Maybe a little bit overthrown there for a rock that was almost fully buried, but still a good shot to get it out from behind that guard.
So Team Ontario here getting to throw another draw, learn that draw weight here. This rock burying nicely behind the off-center guard.
With how much curl is in this ice, though, that rock kind of acts as a second guard for Team Quebec right now to try to come around.
Looks like Team Quebec looking to get their 2 points here in the odd end. Noticing an opportunity with this off center. Sweepers indicating this one might be a little bit heavy.
Does stop in time to sit shot stone though. It is open, but Team Ontario, having just thrown this draw around here, is really going to put the pressure on Team Quebec now.
And here we have second Cameron Bodigan. This rock curling in here very nicely, looking to get the finish. That was a great shot.
Really well done. It seems like Ontario has figured out how to use their sweepers out here on this sheet of ice, and that's going to be a huge advantage to them for the rest of this game.
Team Quebec recognizing that they might be in a little bit of trouble here, so bailing here, throwing the peel or potential run back.
Yeah, it looks like they were just calling the peel. At the end, they actually tried to get that one to curl to get it off the center line. Maybe could have just swept it to keep it straight the whole way and made contact on that run back. But leaves a corner guard to use maybe later in the end.
And we know Quebec has that upweight ability if they do need to remove a few rocks later in the end. So here is Sam Hastings throwing the tight guard. Laura, can you explain a little bit about the sweepers here trying to finish the rock?
Yeah, so they're doing what's called directional sweeping. The idea is by sweeping on the opposite side of the rock, you're scratching the ice in a little bit of a different way and helping pull that rock over towards where you want it to go. So you'll see a lot of teams try that on a lot of different shots.
Definitely with the new broom fabric coming into play these last couple of years, it is a lot less, as everyone does have the same fabric on their brooms.
Yeah, what they're doing now is a little bit less about the fabric and more about the angle of your broom and the side that you're sweeping on. Just not quite curling up enough for the double. No, really nice throw there from Anthony Pedno. A little bit overswept on him, I believe. There at the end, they're trying to get it to curl. Just misses contact with that back stone. I believe Ontario did say now that they are going to be throwing the guard, about a halfway guard. Sorry, going into the top 8 here to sit 2. Neither would have been a wrong call. Yeah, without the hammer here, Ontario just really looking to get the force here, but maybe recognizing a chance that sitting 2 and a potential steal is in play. Puts that in a great spot. Because it is such a tight guard, there will be a chance to play the run double here. follow the sweeping on that one pretty much the whole way.
Yeah, I think that one needed to just be off the sweeping, let it curl a little bit more, but nonetheless does remove 2 rocks from play.
Yeah, you see where the angle of this rock is. Had he hit a little bit more of the top stone, he actually could have got rid of all 3 of those red ones. Still a great shot to remove the top 2 and open things up, but a bit of an opportunity miss there.
Yeah, just a little bit of an undercurl. Looks like Team Ontario is looking to play a potential freeze. Would you ever consider here, Laura, maybe just splitting the rings?
You definitely could. I think what Team Ontario is a little bit worried about is where they leave their second stone. If they leave it in a place where Quebec has a double, maybe they're a bit concerned after the last end, watching the big weight ability of the Quebec skip. Then all of a sudden Quebec's sitting 2, and now you're probably giving up a deuce. So by doing this, coming to that back one, it's just as good as hitting it. Basically, if you can freeze right onto it, you take it out of play, and then Quebec is forced to play over where it's open to that rock in the top 4 foot, and you have a much better chance to force.
For sure, just needs to be cautious of not leaving it too high where there is a double, but there would probably be a double back if they did leave one, as they would all be grouped in the middle.
Exactly. By grouping these stones, even if you do leave a double, it'll be wide open for you then to play a shot on your next one, versus splitting the rings, coming around that corner guard. Like we said last end, always a little risky coming around your opponent's corner guards.
The hard sweep from Team Ontario, just getting it around, and the weight looks very nice. Looks like Quebec is lining up the double here. Potentially could make all 3 rocks removed from play here. And we could have another blank in play.
A blank here would be huge for Team Quebec then to take the last rock into the 4th end, the even ends. These are just 8-end games, so not really ever too early of a time to start trying to get that hammer back in the even ends.
Just running it by. So Team Ontario will have a chance to split the rings and sit 2 to force Quebec to a single here. Dylan has played a couple draws already, so he should have a very good idea about what draw weight is here in the 3rd.
Yeah, he's been spot on with his draws. Pretty much everyone he's thrown so far, so expect him to be pretty close on this one.
Sweeper's just cleaning this one into the rings. Trying not to set up a double. And it looks like Team Quebec is going to play the draw for 1. Laura, would you ever consider maybe playing the double?
If you really had to score 2, it's there. But I think this early in the game with the score the way it is, it's huge to keep control here. By playing that double, you're risking either taking that top guard or even flashing. It's pretty close to flashing to make it that thin. So it's important to keep control of this game here, and it's a little bit of deja vu from the first end. He's already thrown this exact shot, so. But it is there if he needed to make it. It was the 8th end, and he's down 1.
Should have a good general idea about what draw weight is in this path.
Yeah, once again, though, they're playing it to the backing on purpose, which is always a little bit dangerous. Tends to be overthrown when you do that, but this one seems to be curling over here. Uh-oh.
Just ticking, so that will be a steal of 1 for Team Ontario here in the third end of play.
See the replay there. Just a little bit too much weight. Trying to use the backing and overthrown a little bit. Often if it's overthrown like that, you just don't get the line.
So would have liked to take their single here in the third, but nonetheless, we'll have hammer here in the fourth end. So Quebec's first rock here in the fourth end, looking to potentially set up a corner guard here to try and generate their 2 points.
Just not quite getting the line that was intended there. You'll see sometimes on this arena ice, it takes a little bit longer to climb up towards the center line, and then once it gets across it, it'll really curl, and that stone just never got across it, unfortunately. His weight looked pretty good, but now leaving 2 guards up front for Ontario to use.
Yeah, definitely interesting, as the coaches did talk about needing to throw more rotation and their rocks curling a lot, but a few under curls so far.
Yeah, and it could just be, too, they're getting later in the week and they're starting to get used to how to throw on this arena ice. They're doing a better job of keeping the rotation on those stones. And they're not adjusting the ice accordingly. Actually rubbed on the top of that front guard and probably worked out better that way. It's fully buried behind both of those 2 rocks.
Quebec's sweeping to keep this rock straight, as they would like to play the peel or potentially hit and roll for another corner guard.
Rolled quite wide, but we actually saw in the second end some rocks score behind a guard way over there, so you never know. It's a usable rock.
Here we will see second Cameron with his first rock of the fourth end. Three out of the 5 of these Ontario team has been together for 7 years. Their skip did age out last year, so the third moved up to skip, and they brought in a new vice in Hastings. Definitely getting to play together for more years together as a team is probably more of a benefit. Hey, Laura?
Absolutely. You start to learn a lot about your players, not just how everyone throws, where to put the ice for them, and how to judge their rocks and that sort of thing. But you also get to know how players react to certain things, what they need to hear in stressful situations, all of those little nuances within a team that can make such a big difference in these big pressure moments at events like this. You can talk about it all you want, but until you're in those situations, it's pretty tough to really know.
Exactly. Definitely a huge advantage curling together for more years. It's funny, we often see now in the Olympic cycle teams forming for a 4-year cycle, so they do have that time to grow together as a team.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to know what you need to know and do what you need to do after just 1 year as a team and go out and compete at that level. You see it sometimes with really talented players, but usually there's a lot of work put in over the summer, over the phone even, just trying to get to know everyone and figuring things out right from the get-go.
Yeah, and a few members on this team aren't all from Coldwater. So like we see in the men's and ladies play, some teams actually have players living in different provinces. And like you said, have to get together for practice weekends or, like you said, phone meetings, or lots of travel is involved to try and get to know each other.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to where curling is going. You know, when I played juniors at this age, you never would have seen a team all over the province like that. We're all in the same place for the most part and can get together for your practices on Thursday evenings or whatever it is. But now you see these teams really putting together what they feel is the strongest team regardless of where everyone's living.
That was a great shot from Quebec.
Yeah, great double peel. Opens things right up. A lot more difficult on these ice conditions to throw a guard just on one rock. They had a little bit more real estate to work with previously with 2 rocks there. Great throw.
So now we'll see here, third, Sam. Try and throw up a off-center / center guard. So now we see the Ontario sweeper trying to finish this rock to make it curl.
Yeah, we saw in the third end there, Ontario third tried a guard and did the same thing. He under-curled, didn't quite get the line. That could be a couple of things. He could just be throwing a bit more rotation or a little bit more positive than the rest of the team, or he might have a straight rock even that they're just not picking up on. The rocks aren't always all the same out there, but might need to just tighten up the broom for him either way. Now you can see that rock is pretty much wide open there and a great opportunity missed for Team Ontario.
Yeah, talking about the rocks a little bit, talking to John Wall, and these are the rocks that were used at the 2019 Brier in Brandon, as well as at the 2019 New Holland Canadian Juniors this year. So the rocks are high quality for sure. The only difference would be that they do not have the electronic handles on them, but they are the same stone.
One thing that's so important as you get into higher levels of curling is actually figuring out the rocks and which rocks pair well together, and if there's different nuances within the rocks. It's amazing how many shots are actually missed by, you know, not picking up on a stone that's a little bit different. Could be thrown very well. The broom was in the right spot for the rock that was thrown just before it, but if you can match up your rocks really well, you'll have a huge advantage.
Yeah, and teams that do come to events like these multiple times, these are also the rocks that were used last year at the Canadian Under-18 Championships in St. Andrews, New Brunswick. So other teams that were at that event might have a little bit of an advantage or know some more information about the rocks.
Absolutely, and you will sometimes see rocks keep their patterns throughout that many events, but often when they are touched up, as we say, they're essentially sandpapered along the bottom to try to make them a bit more rougher. They grab more pebble and they curl more that way. So when the rocks are consistently sanded like that, you can create, you know, different differences. So sometimes it doesn't always hold up over time. So if you can do a really good job of watching the patterns, matching the rocks in practice, figuring out all of those sorts of things, then you're going to be way above your opposition.
John did mention that the rocks were touched up, or sandpapered as we like to call it, right before the event to try and put more curl into the rocks per se.
Nice freeze there from Quebec. It doesn't quite get shot stone, but leaves it at a very good angle. Cuts down the scoring area as well for Ontario. So it's, you know, Ontario might not want to come in there now, set up any kind of angle. And it might be a usable stone for Quebec to use.
So here we see Skip Dillon here in the fourth end with his first rock.
Just looking to guard here, realizing that that Quebec stone is in a pretty usable spot. Just trying to put one in front of it. And that's in a good spot.
So it looks like Team Quebec might think they can see a little bit of this rock that they would be able to pick out a play to sit shot stone. Maybe you can see about a quarter of it, or maybe potentially a half from the other end.
Looks like he's just playing it with like a tap kind of weight with when you look at that ice. You can't see a ton of this red stone, so it's pretty difficult to play such quiet weight. You see it there, barely any of it's exposed. So to just play with tap weight, I'm not sure how far he's going to actually move the red stone. Could just choose to straight pick it out and make Ontario make a good shot. Tough for Ontario to hide with the way that the rocks are staggered off the center line. But we'll see.
Sweepers on this one, but just racking on the top one.
Not a bad result. Opened it up again to force Ontario to play the same shot, and by playing the same shot, see this over curl here. Sweeper's trying to hold it, but looked like the weight he was trying to throw. Where that yellow rock rolled to, we see it spinning there into the side of the 12-foot. Now Quebec can actually use their own stone to come off of and maybe score 2 points. So Ontario might consider coming deeper into the rings now and try to cut down that scoring area. Ontario Sweeper is not on this one at all yet. They do want it behind the tee line so that they don't leave a double, but needs to stay in the 4-foot to not leave Quebec a shot for 2.
And that will sit 2, sit 2.
That's a really nice shot. That he had a very small window to put that one in a good spot. If he was much higher, he could have left a double. If he was much deeper, he would have left that in off for 2. Kind of like a 1-foot window there that he had, and he put it on a dime. This Ontario skip has had great draw weight and no fear.
Great draw weight for sure, and a very precise shot. Otherwise, there might have been a potential shot for a multiple score here. So now we will see Skip of Team Quebec drawing against 2 here in the 4th end of play, looking to get their single to tie the game at 2.
We've seen Raphael a couple of times use the backing, or at least attempt to use the backing in his draws at the end of the ends here. So he'll want to just take a deep breath and maybe bring that weight down a little bit.
Sweepers backing right off this one, though. Have not touched it yet. Now saying clean. Maybe use this other one for backing. Just taking it, and that will be a steal for Team Ontario, and they will take a 3-1 lead over Quebec heading into the second half. So here we see some highlights. Team Quebec getting their 1 point here with a nice tap. And here we see Ontario draw for 2. And here we see the steal of 1 in the third end from Team Ontario. And here we see trying to make it finish here in the fourth end, but doesn't quite finish enough, and that will be another steal of 1 for Team Ontario. So they will take the 3-1 lead heading into the second half. And welcome back to the Glen Allen Recreation Center here in Sherwood Park, Alberta. Just starting the fifth end of play. Team Ontario does have a 3-point lead here heading into the second half. Two-point lead, sorry. Team Quebec here looking to maybe mix it up, try and generate a deuce here in the fifth end by throwing the corner guard.
Yeah, Team Ontario is not letting up here at all, still throwing that center line guard, even with a 2-point lead. They could consider coming into the rings now with the scoreboard the way it is, but recognizing that it's an odd end, they'd really love to force Team Quebec to a single point here. They don't want to let them blank this end.
Yeah, and in the efficiency after the 4 ends, Quebec did force Ontario to 1 point, as did Ontario and Quebec both forcing, but also the steals in the third and fourth end are really the key turning points so far in this game.
And both of those steals were on heavy draws by Team Quebec. Both of them looked like he was playing to that backing, and that's always a dangerous thing as a skip. You just really want to get that forefoot in your back pocket, and you know, the backing's there if you need it and you made a small mistake, but you don't ever really want to be playing to that backing unless, you know, there's a reason to for the line or there's a guard in play. But both of those were wide open draws for Team Quebec, and there was just no need to play it that way.
Exactly, and just here in the second half, we'll be looking to get that 2 points, but with the 5 rock rule, definitely a possibility. We have seen lots of 3-enders or even 4 or 5-enders this week, so definitely still early enough to still come back.
Lots of game left.
Here we'll see Team Quebec attempt to come around their corner guard. So Laura, what do you think would be the keys for both of these teams heading into the second half?
I think they'll just want to reflect on what's happened so far here and take a look at the patterns they've been seeing as far as ice conditions. I think the team that can figure out this sheet of ice the best is the one that's going to come away with the win here. We still have seen a few mistakes, you know, so a couple missed line calls, a few missed guards on the line, and some heavy draws here and there, things like that. If they could just figure out the speed, recognize what the ice is doing, and just figure out those patterns, then they'll be good to go for the second half. Again, just not quite matching the line and the weight. A little bit heavy there and didn't curl, but even with the extra speed, the line wasn't quite there. So both teams just not quite figuring out the sheet just yet.
For sure, and we do have 8 other games going on this afternoon here at the Glen Allen Recreation Center. On the boys' side, on sheet A, we have Team Alberta host with a 5-1 lead over Team Prince Edward Island. On sheet B, we have Team Newfoundland with a 5-3 advantage over Team New Brunswick. On our featured sheet, Team Ontario leading 3-1 after 4 ends. And after 3 ends of play, British Columbia up 2-1 over Team Northern Ontario. We also have girls action this afternoon, and Northwest Territories with the 5-3 lead over Team British Columbia. Team Saskatchewan is up 4-3 over Team Nova Scotia. Team Prince Edward Island up 3-2 over Alberta host. Team Quebec and Team Manitoba tied at 2, and Team Newfoundland with the 4-0 lead over Team New Brunswick.
With that rollout by Quebec second, Zachary Pedno, now Ontario has a second chance at making this freeze that they just missed. So anytime you leave a player the same shot twice, you know they're going to be close on the second one. And he makes that one beautifully.
That is a great shot from Ontario.
Zachary, we mentioned earlier, is the youngest player on this sheet at just 15 years old, and he got into curling from his brother, who is the third on this team, Anthony Pedneau. His brother told him that curling was the best sport, so he should try it out, and he did start to play, and now he's here with him today, so that's pretty cool.
That is very special. I am very biased, and I do think curling is the best sport also. That was a very good choice.
Yeah, it's okay.
Just coming a little bit deep on this one.
Again, the line just is the bigger issue there too. He could have afforded to tap that one a little bit, but just didn't really come close on the line. So these teams will want to get together in between ends and talk about what they're seeing a little bit here. Often as the game goes on, the ice can get a little bit straighter. We talked about that earlier, that ice conditions can change as you throw rocks down a particular path over and over again. So just make sure they're making the appropriate adjustments.
For sure. I'm sure Coach of Team Quebec did maybe talk about maybe tightening the ice up a little bit, or having less ice, as we like to call it. Heading into the second half, as if your weight's perfect but the line isn't good, it might not work out most times.
Yeah.
The great sweep from Cameron to finish that rock.
Yeah, I was just watching those two Ontario sweepers, actually. Both of them have their legs kicking out behind their hip line, meaning that they're putting a lot of pressure over top of that broom. It can be tough to do when you're younger and before your bodies are fully developed, and they're doing a great job of it.
Sweeping is definitely a big part of the game today, and having excellent sweeping form is very important. And can be the difference between making a shot and missing a shot, for sure.
Huge. There's a reason that a team like Kevin Cooley, who's at the Worlds right now, is one of the best teams in the world. They have just monster sweeping at the front end for them. Think of how many times you just get by a guard or feather tick a guard, and that could have gone either way with good or bad sweeping. So such an important thing, and something that, you watch teams practicing, and I see a lot of people throw rock after rock after rock, and that person's a front end player, and I never see them practice sweeping. It's something to keep in mind. You only throw 2 rocks an end, and if you're a front end player, you sweep 6. So it seems like sometimes we have our priorities a little bit backwards with what we're working on in this sport, and sweeping is just such a huge part of it, not just the strength of it, but the judgment and the management of the stone and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that goes further testament to the fitness programs that a lot of these teams are on, and maybe the difference between a team at the end of the week who is doing well as opposed to maybe a team that does not have fitness programs. And at this event, lots of strong sweepers, but also keeping strong at the end of the week mentally too, and physically is very important.
Absolutely. Even like you just said, the mental side of things, it can be tough to stay mentally focused and mentally strong when you're physically tired. So having both sides of those things covered, the nutrition, the fitness, but then also the mental toughness, it all goes hand in hand.
These are quite long events, national championships. I know the under-18 athletes did start arriving on Sunday, so that is already almost 5 days ago, and still have 2.5 days of play. And when you get older and get into the Canadian juniors, Briar Scotties, they're even longer. So this is great preparation for them in terms of even the length of an event to stay mentally sharp. Ontario maybe indicating this one is a bit heavy. Not a lot of rotation on this one, so it might curl and slow down a little bit. Nice shot.
Yeah, very nice shot. Kept an angle on that stone. You can see they kept it a little bit open from the guard. You'll see it come in here. Just a little bit of a tap, but kept a great angle on it so that the red rock is still accessible and usable in a really nice spot.
Still leaves Quebec sitting there 1 point, but the scoring area definitely getting very small to try and score 2 this end. Quebec looks like they can see possibly maybe a quarter rock where they might be able to tap this back.
They don't necessarily need to tap it back. As you mentioned, Quebec is sitting shot stone. If they could even put a freeze on top of that red rock, Ontario could be in a little bit of trouble. Then by playing that red rock, as you see biting the top of the forefoot into that pile, you might actually end up removing one of your red ones. Could Quebec put a freeze in there. There's just really no need to actually move this rock quite yet, but they've proved me wrong already.
Definitely being down 2 would like to generate, so very important shot here from the third. Sweepers are on this one early. The line looks really good on this one. Sweeping to make it curl.
It appears as though that was a good shot. I mean, he made the shot that they called exactly, but left it, if you watch where the shooter stops, left it in a spot where the angle on that red rock biting the top of the forefoot is pretty natural to go into the pocket of those two. Had he just frozen there, then if you hit that red rock into that pocket, you're also losing your red rock and maybe leaving a yellow rock in play. It's pretty risk-free now for Ontario to try that if they choose to.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the double is there. Can see about half a rock. Looks like they are maybe thinking of calling a timeout.
Really nice shot there from Anthony of Team Quebec, but maybe looking at the angles to see if this might jam.
Do you think they are lined up to jam on that side red, or do you think it would jam into maybe the yellow?
If it jammed anywhere, I believe it would jam into the yellow one, and I'm not sure that's a huge deal because of that red rock you have there in the full back 8. It would still be shot rock. Oh, that's okay. I see. They're looking at the double on the outside here. That's why they were looking at that jam opportunity. You can see about, we're right behind the sheet here, you can see about a half of this yellow stone. You can see it there. If you do hit what you can see, then you should be able to make that double. Guess he figures his red rock there at the top of the 4 is in such a good position, doesn't want to remove it.
Sweepers are on this one early. And it just ticks the guard. So now opportunity for Team Ontario to potentially guard their 2 points. Hard to guard both sides though, Laura Hay, where Team Ontario might be able to run their red in, or if you don't guard the other side, there'd be another double to sit, possibly 3.
Yeah, there is really no way to guard everything because both shots, either the red into those 2 yellows or the double on the yellows, you need to hit about half of a stone. Even putting it right in the middle of those 2, you can make them both harder for sure, but you're leaving both shots there. And Quebec, I think, realizing that, now calling a timeout, and will bring out their coach, Jean-Francois Gauthier.
Here we see the replay.
the fantastic freeze that set up this. It is actually a predicament for Team Quebec, even though they're sitting 2 shots. That's how we got to this situation here that we're in.
Yeah, that was definitely a nice tap from the third of Team Quebec, but potentially leaving a double, and the rock's not quite in Quebec's favor in terms of rock placement right now, for sure.
Just because of where that red stone is. To remove it, you kind of have to roll out, and then you're leaving Ontario the exact same double that they just threw. And if you leave it there, you're leaving Ontario a great opportunity. And like we spoke about a little bit earlier, there's really no way to guard everything in the middle there.
Here we see Team Quebec still trying to decide what to possibly do on this shot. Laura, how do you like to leave a timeout when you are skipping? Do you like to, when the coach leaves, potentially have a shot already decided, or do you usually still take some time after the coach leaves?
No, I love when the coach comes out and we just present what the options are. Usually there's 2. So, you talk about your 2 options and the coach gives you their thoughts. And I love when you can wrap all of that up and have your shot in mind. And then all you need to do with your team is discuss what weight you're going to play, what turn you're going to play, those sorts of things. Sometimes if a coach leaves without having the decision made up, it can really just start eating into your time, because then you just feel even less confident. Coach came out, you talked about it, and you still don't know what to do. So always a good thing to have those things figured out beforehand.
For sure, and teams do still have quite a bit of time, but with 3 ends left, about 4 minutes per end they will still have, which is pretty ideal.
Yeah, if you can look at, it's not good.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate miss from Team Quebec, over curling on that one.
Yeah, they were just trying to almost draw beside it, which I don't mind that call at all. Just put as many rocks in the forefoote as you can so that if Team Ontario did make that double, you still have shot stone. But over curling actually had great weight. By over curling and tapping it right into that pocket, if Ontario can make contact here on that top red one, pretty easy to get rid of both of those yellows.
For sure, they might have been trying to draw beside, or maybe possibly come around back 4 to sit their 3, where they might have not lined up a triple, but definitely a double here for Team Ontario here in the 5th end. So here's Skip Dillon for Team Ontario, looking to play the double here in the 5th end. It's a nice shot from Dillon. Does not make the double, but looks to be sitting possibly.
I do believe that he did get shot stone, and where he left his shooter, probably the next best thing to making that double. To actually make the double, not sure they maybe looked that closely at the angles. You would have had to curl a little bit more, try to hit that red or the yellow rock on the left-hand side as we look at it first, but actually leaves his shooter in a great spot. So quite easy here for Quebec to get their single point, but not so easy for them to get to.
Yeah, Team Quebec very much needs their single here. Steal would not be very ideal, so possibly has 2 taps here. He did just play the out turn, so potentially could play that one, but also the one on the left side of the sheet to us could also be tapped up as it is closer. Team Quebec will have another discussion here. Both teams using up quite a bit of time, as they are now both under 12 minutes. We saw in this morning's game that one team did throw with under 10 seconds left. So teams not banking maybe a lot of time early because of aggressive play.
Yeah, that discussion, they were talking about which of the 2 shots to play. That really just comes down to Raphael and what he wants to play. It's kind of the same thing. It's only a shot for one no matter what they choose. So whatever the skip feels most comfortable with, that's when you're the third, you say whatever you like, skipper, and leave them on their way.
This rock is curling a little bit. And it will tap the red up even further, and that will be another steal for Team Ontario here in the 5th end.
Yeah, Quebec's actually not played a bad game here so far, just missing the wrong ones, unfortunately. Just good weight on that shot that he just threw. A little bit of an overcurl. And with that shot as well, you could have really hit anywhere from, you know, an inch of that stone on the outside to tapping it back on the nose. So that's where you want to look at your options and maybe open that broom up just a little bit. Well, it looked like he only missed that shot by an inch by overcurling. He really missed it by, 6 or 8 inches because of how wide he could have been.
So, Laura, what will Team Quebec look to do here in the 6th end, potentially?
Put lots of rocks in play.
Lots of rocks.
They need a lot of rocks in play here to try to generate at least the 2 points. So, this is a 5-rock rule, so if they can get their 2 here, even if they force Ontario in the 7th end, they still have a chance to get 2 or 3 back in that last end of the game. So they're really going to want to score a multiple point end here. Team Ontario, recognizing that Team Quebec wants to put a lot of rocks in play, they actually brought their first rock into the rings for the first time this game. Now with that 3-point lead, they'd really like to keep the play into the rings, reduce the number of guards out front for Team Quebec to use.
Still with 3 ends of play and the 5-rock rule, though, for Team Quebec. Still has a chance to generate multiples here in the even end.
Absolutely. Much crazier things have happened in this sport. This game is definitely still could go either way.
Looks like Team Ontario might have been looking to leave this out of the rings potentially, but just slipping in.
Probably better.
For sure, I'd agree with that. I'm a little bit surprised on this call that Team Quebec is not electing to throw maybe 2 corner guards on one side or throwing a corner guard on the other side, as they are 3 down.
Yeah, at the very least, if you're going to play into the rings, you maybe want to consider just tapping this stone back. You could tap it back behind the tee line, and now all of a sudden there's a pocket there for Team Quebec to freeze to. But by doing what they just did, I know it's a 5-rock rule, and Team Ontario can't peel yet, but you just missed a great opportunity there if you're Team Quebec. Does look like Team Ontario calling for the guard here. This is where, as a skip, you might want to ask yourself, what does Team Quebec want? And the answer to that question is guards. So you might want to consider just bringing this one into the rings and forcing the play into the rings. You really don't want to leave guards for the other team, but this one was missed the right way, brought it into the rings instead of leaving a higher guard for Quebec to use. Even still, there's really no need to be hitting this one with this kind of weight. You could tap it back again, or you could just play the straight draw. There's definitely room through that hole.
Team Quebec still playing quite a bit of weight. I like to think that that top 12 one was maybe a usable rock to tap back and potentially use later on in the end. Team Quebec throwing quite a bit of weight, and you definitely need more rocks in play if you want to generate multiples.
Yeah, they had quite a few options on what they could have called there on that shot. Instead of that hit that they did call, they could have just straight drawn around the corner guard. They could have tapped the rock back or top 12 back into the back 8 foot to make a pocket. They could have come around and frozen even to that back rock, make Ontario blast, and now you can go around your corner guard a little more carefree. But by doing what they did, they don't do a whole lot of good for themselves trying to generate multiple points. Got a little lucky there, though, with Ontario rolling over behind that corner guard. Might make a jam opportunity later on in the end. Ontario would have been probably happier to even roll that right out of the rings than to roll where they rolled to.
For sure. A little bit surprised also. The peel might have been an option. You are up 3. And if Team Quebec did elect to hit after the peel, you would have multiple chances at making a double, and they are in the 8-foot, so close together. Sweeper's not quite getting by the guard.
That's where we were talking about earlier. When with 3-point lead, you don't need to score anymore. There's only a couple of ends left in this game. You don't need to score. You just need to limit your opposition. A blank here would have been just fine, so no issues with rolling all the way out of the rings. But where they rolled to, they left it in a very usable spot for Team Quebec, and as you saw there, created that jam opportunity, and now all of a sudden Quebec's sitting one behind a corner guard.
Yeah, that might be a topic of conversation for the coach to have with his players after the game about peeling the guard. Our coach likes to use an acronym called PTG, peel the guard, that we should do a lot. And we often hear that a lot when he thinks we should have maybe played the peel, and I think that was definitely a scenario where the peel would have been beneficial.
When in doubt, peel.
Exactly.
Big sweep here to get this one into the rings. Really nice sweeping by Team Quebec. That was so huge to get that in.
Team Ontario lining up the double here. Even a hit and roll into the rings here would definitely be a great shot. Looks like maybe throwing some quieter weight. Not sure if he's throwing to play the hit and roll or the double.
Just not quite getting the curl there. It did look like quite a bit of ice for a takeout.
Yeah, for a heavy takeout like that, that was probably like a normal weight, but maybe could have even just played control, play the hit and roll. But with that up weight, it does roll far and did roll out of play.
Another option for Team Quebec here, just with the scoreboard, would be to actually come another one around that corner guard. Earlier in the end, you might not want to do that because you leave more opportunities for that run back to be made, but with only 2 stones left to come here for Team Ontario, you could put a ton of pressure on them by putting another one around around that corner guard. This really needs to get in the rings. Sweeper's really working it. Great sweeping. They do leave that same double though, and it's even a little bit more of a natural angle now. Had all sweepers, all of them, all hands on deck out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if Team Quebec on that last one maybe would have came around the corner guard, that might have been their potential chance at getting 3, but maybe just feeling getting 2 here they are more than happy with.
Yeah, splitting the rings there is a great call to guarantee your 2 coming around that corner guard. If they do make that run double, you could be forced all of a sudden, but in the 6th end of an 8-end game when you're down 3 points, comes a point where you need to start taking some risks. I mean, when you leave the other skip a run double with your own color.
Ontario to sweep to make this curl, and just by. Maybe taking a little bit too much ice there. Looks like the throws are pretty close.
Now I would definitely be coming around this corner guard. The other skip only has one chance to make a big shot or run double here, and you're putting so much pressure on him. They really haven't put a ton of pressure on the Ontario skip yet this game. But again, just guaranteeing the 2 points. If he can stick this around with the scoreboard, you will see Ontario go ahead and hit the open one. So make sure they're getting their 2 here. Nothing wrong with that.
Needs to be careful about not rolling out, as that Ontario might be able to pick this other yellow out of play if it does overcurl.
Well done.
So here we'll see skip of Team Ontario attempt to maybe hit and roll under a little bit, make it a bit tougher on Team Quebec to get their 2 points here in the 6th. Just cleaning this one in here, looks nice, right on the nose. So Team Quebec having a chance to get their 2 points here in the 6th end.
First 2 of the game.
Yes, it is the first multiple.
It's a very important shot for Quebec. These are the ones that sometimes can get away from you. They're fairly easy shots, wide open hits, and sometimes you get a little nonchalant with your routine, rush through things. Important to really focus and make it a big shot.
Nice shot from Team Quebec, and they will pick up their 2 points with the hammer here in the 6th end of play. So Team Ontario will take the hammer into the 7th end, up 4-3. Here we see the replay of the hit and stick 4-2. Nice shot.
Yeah, Supers were on that one the whole way from where we were sitting. It really looked like it was curling. Really great swooping to hold that stone.
Here we just see the score breakdown. Quebec getting their 1 in the 1st end, and then forcing Ontario to take their single in 2, but in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th end, getting steals of 1 to really make the difference in this game. But Team Quebec getting their 2 points in the 6th end to be only down by 1 with 2 ends to play.
Yeah, so far we've had a fairly evenly played game. Some great shots by both teams and a couple of opportunities missed from both teams. The biggest thing just being the wrong shots missed by Team Quebec at the wrong times. The skips of Team Quebec, Raphael has made some great shots, but just a little bit heavy on his last stones, and that has led to those steals.
So what will we expect here out of Team Quebec and Team Ontario heading into these last 2 ends of play?
Quebec will really want to keep some rocks in play here. They'd love to steal this end, or at least they'd love to force Team Ontario to their single point with the 5-rock rule. Just being down 2, you're certainly not out of it. We've seen lots of 3s to win games so far this year with this new rule. So Quebec will really want to have some rocks in play, and Ontario would love to blank this end if ever possible. It's going to be tough with Quebec trying so hard to force or steal, but if Ontario could get a blank out of this end and take that hammer into the last end with a 1-point lead, they'd be pretty happy. With Ontario's rock slipping behind the tee line there, Team Quebec chose to come around that center line guard. Another option would have been to throw a second center line guard just over the hog line, make it so that there's no double peel. Made a great shot here, though.
So here we'll see lead Trey Cowell. Trey is a recipient of the Connor Ramsey Memorial Award / Sportsmanship Award 2019 this past December at the Toronto Curling Association Championships, voted on by his peers. Connor was a dear friend to him and local U-18 competitive curler that passed away this past summer. And he is very proud that most teams on the U-18 competitive tour wore patches in his honor this season. And that is a nice shot from Trey.
Mm-hmm. And really quite an honor to win an award like that. I've always thought that those kinds of things are just as important as the wins out there on the ice. It says a lot about his character. Calm, cool, and collected out there. Knows that was a great shot, but holding it together.
Yeah, unlike who he admires the most in curling, Ben Hebert, maybe, as opposed to...
Complete opposite.
But Trey did right that who he admires in curling or another sport would be Ben Hebert.
Benny got a fan out there. We've seen a few great shots here to start this end. Quebec would have loved to roll that under just a little bit, but does at least get what we call edge to edge, so the two stones are in line, and it's a lot more difficult to roll underneath the guard in that case. Also creates a jam opportunity at the back with how these are lined up. So nice shot by Zachary Pedneau from Team Quebec.
One interesting fact about Cameron, the second on Team Ontario, is that although he is on Team Ontario, he does have a Northern Ontario hat that he got from E.J. Harnden, and he keeps as a good luck charm.
There you go. Actually, I've looked at that hat many times this game and never thought much of it. That makes sense. Quebec second Zachary is also a ski racer. He did that for about 4 years. So another multi-sport athlete here on the sheet.
Interesting, as the second on Team Ontario said that he could ski and skateboard efficiently at the age of 3.
Oh, maybe we should have a ski battle instead of this curling game. Does unfortunately jam that one at the back there, just not quite curling as much as they would have hoped. See here, trying to make it curl at the end and get it in there. This is a huge opportunity for Team Quebec. There's 2 staggered yellow guards out in front. They have a stone at the back of the forefoot and a great opportunity here to play a hit and roll and sit 3 with 2 of them buried behind or sit 4 even, sorry, buried behind a centerline guard.
It's a very big shot for Team Quebec here, as a steal of 1 or 2 would be a massive turning point. Trying to make the rock curl here. Does curl up, but does not sit to sit 4.
Did avoid the jam at the back, though, which was huge. Ontario with a decision to make here with this 1-point lead. Coming around this staggered situation in the middle is a little bit dangerous, but almost forced to play it here at this point. Really want to make sure this stays in front of the tee line.
So here we have third, Sam Hastings. He put on his biography that he admires Brad Jacobs and Brad Gushu as his 2 admirers.
The Brads. 2 great skips in the game of curling.
And he is also quite the dancer, as he can 2-step, he said.
We'll have to take him out for a dance.
Nice shot from Sam, but potentially could hit to sit that out. But Team Quebec electing to draw around top 4 to put more pressure on Team Ontario.
Yeah, I love this call. Just get one in there in front of the tee line, and Team Ontario has very limited rocks to deal with it. Third, Anthony Pedno wants to be a teacher when he's finished school. I think you're also in education, aren't you, Dustin?
I am also in education, an excellent profession, and I wish him all the best of luck in his teaching career.
That worked out okay for them. Looks like they're sitting 2 now. Again, both teams just a little bit heavy here on these draws, maybe knowing that they can come to the backing and having that in the back of their mind.
Mm-hmm. Still a lot of yellows in play.
Mm-hmm. And that red one's wide open now, whereas before it was a little bit overlapped onto the yellow. So not a bad result, but because of that wall at the back of the rings, if Ontario can put one in front of these stones here, then it's going to be pretty tough for Quebec to ever remove it.
This rock is a little bit wide out there, but the rocks have been curling a lot.
Yeah, if his weight's good, it should finish for sure.
Coming in here very nicely now. And that is an excellent shot from Sam, the 3rd on Team Ontario. The fans behind the sheet are very happy, as you can hear them cheering. Excellent sweep as well from the front end.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what just one rock being kept in front of the tee line can do for your team. Now you're putting Quebec in a ton of trouble, although maybe slipped a rock too deep. I think with the way that this curls, you can probably come, if you're Team Quebec, and just bump it a foot off of the button, and you can sit shot stone.
So now we see Skip of Team Quebec with his first rock in the 7th end.
Already trying to make this one curl here.
This rock looks just a little bit heavy. Does remove the back red from play, but the all-important shot is the one that is sitting right on the button.
Yeah, it looked like you see it coming in here and tapping this red stone here all the way through the ring. So probably threw a little bit more weight there than he had anticipated throwing, and then it just didn't curl the way he needed it to. He could have even just thrown, top 4, top button, and if you play that as a freeze, it's probably going to be a force this end, which is okay. And you want to throw those ones to your sweepers.
Yeah, that was definitely a key shot, as sitting freezing on that one and forcing Team Ontario to 1. Being down 2 with the hammer in the 8th end, we have seen 3-enders happen in the past, and or even 2-enders are very common now, so the force here is very important.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously not ideal to be down 2, but you're still in the game in that case, whereas giving up a multiple end here, you're going to lose most of the time.
The percentages were definitely not on your side. And this rock looks like it is coming in very nicely. And Chus gets it by. Does tap it back a bit, but sitting 2. Team Quebec will need to sit right on the pin if possible, or even sit second shot to try and force.
Yeah, very well done by Ontario there. Skip of Team Ontario has had his draw weight pretty much this whole game and had just great control on the speed of his stones. He hasn't really overthrown a whole lot, and it allows his sweepers to work with it, either keeping it a little bit straight or trying to help it curl. When you overthrow it, you pretty much bring your sweepers out of it, and you can't manage the stone at all to get what you need to get out of it. So really well done by Team Ontario, and I really think that that's the reason that they have the lead here in this game in the 7th end.
Maybe learning some draw weight, because when Dylan first started to curl, he asked Glenn Howard to come to bring a friend to curling day in cold water as his friend, and he did show up.
Wow.
This rock is curling a lot. Just coming up a little bit short here. So
Yeah.
Team Ontario will have a chance to draw for potentially 3 here in the 7th end.
Yeah, probably just an over-adjustment there from the Quebec skip. It happens all the time. You're a little bit heavy on one, so you try to take some off and you come up a little bit short, or vice versa. Pretty common. We are seeing Ontario go out into a different path than we've seen. We haven't really seen them go out quite this wide. He needs to go wider than his first one to get around the yellow stone that was just thrown. So looks like he and his sweepers are talking about the speed. Really smart.
Yeah, a big 3 here in the 7th end would very much put the game in Ontario's favor. So here's Skip Dillon of Team Ontario with the last rock in the 7th end of play. Sweepers on and off it, looks close. Looks like it will come up a little bit short, and that will still be, though, 2 points for Team Ontario to take a 6-3 lead heading into the 8th end.
Take a look at that line score there. Really those steals of 1 in the middle of the game for Team Ontario have been the difference here. Pretty close game. Otherwise, Quebec did have quite a few chances in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th end. Just overthrowing a little bit has been the story for Team Quebec. And Ontario, with some really nice draws to end off the 7th end, gave them their 2 points and a pretty commanding lead here, up 6-3 in the 8th end.
Team Quebec will definitely have to look at throwing 2 corner guards this end, as they do need to generate that 3 points. Laura, how many points do you have to be up on your team to start throwing rocks through the rings?
Before the 5 rock rule, it would have been 3. In this situation here, I would have started throwing them through. If you kind of play the end out, when you're up 3, even if you throw your first 2 through the rings, if you make all of your peels, you're going to have a wide open hit on your last one to run them out of stones. But in the 5 rock rule, it's always nice to get one in there. You feel a little bit silly throwing 3 rocks in a row through the rings. You know, if you're up by any more than 4, you're probably not playing the last end. So most cases now you see teams throw it in the rings just because the game is still close enough to be playing, and pretty tough to throw 3 rocks through in a row. Sometimes you'll see teams throw in top 4 like they just did, and then actually try an angle slash on the yellow rock on the right as you see it. If you can angle it and actually stick it onto the red one in the rings. That's not removing it from play, so you're allowed to do that, but you're moving it into the ring so you can hit it on your next one, and now there's no guard. So obviously a very precise shot, a little bit difficult, but something maybe worth trying with a bigger lead.
Yeah, we often see that in mixed doubles, the corner guard tick. Definitely a shot you might be familiar with, Laura, as you play mixed doubles.
I played that one many times.
Team Quebec looking to potentially throw up a tight guard or maybe come into the rings here. Might be a little bit early to come into the rings, so I would look maybe at keeping this as a tight guard.
Yeah, especially, with the 5-rock rule, you want to use it. If this rock comes into the rings, even if it's fully buried, it allows Ontario to maybe chase it, try something out. You might take the top one. If that one was out of the rings completely, maybe they could have thrown a corner guard on the other side. Now Ontario has a big decision to make. It's just by coming in this early, you're not actually using the 5-rock rule.
Exactly. That rock did bury right behind the card, but they might still be able to throw like a back line or a back 12 to pop it out into the open. Very precise shot for sure. And the tolerance, Laura, on this shot would maybe be to tick the guard potentially?
Yeah, it's a very smart weight call by Team Ontario to just play that back line weight, because if you do tick that guard, you're not likely to tick it all the way out of play, and then at least you're opening it up and you're actually rolling your red rock towards the middle.
Going hard to finish this to try and make it curl.
Yeah, you can see it's just still going. Backline weight would have been to have that rock actually stop on the back line or just past it. We'll see it come into the rings here. They're really trying to make it curl. And still has quite a bit of speed here coming through the back of the ring. So likely just a little bit overthrown. And Quebec now calling a timeout to talk about what to do here with their coach.
So Team Quebec coach out to the ice to talk with his team about some strategy. Laura, in this situation, what would you potentially do? Would you throw up maybe another corner guard on the other side, or do you come around your corner guard? What are some options here?
Those are both definitely options you could do, but now because Team Ontario could peel, if you're throwing another corner guard, they can just walk up and get rid of it anyways. It's not a bad option. You can throw one over there, and then they'll probably peel the one that's guarding your rock, and then you can come around the corner guard that you've just thrown and sit two splitting the rings. Another thing you could do, though, is freeze or play a small tap on the two red rocks that are at the top of the 8-foot, and that's a call that I really like. Keep your rock in front of those two red stones. There'll be no way for Team Ontario to remove your yellow one, and they'll probably be forced to go up and peel the corner guard. And now you can potentially maybe set 3 rocks in the rings. You have a lot of options and opportunities in that case.
Yeah, exactly. And just not wanting to group your stones, but rather use the 2 stones that they threw into the rings as potentially backing or something you could tap to sit multiples later in the end.
Because of the way that they're side by side like that, if you sit in front of them, it'd be very, very tough to get rid of.
This rock is curling quite a bit. Sweepers will look to get this into the rings. Great sweep from Team Quebec.
Not the end of the world, as we talked about earlier, when you're down and trying to score multiple points. Those rocks that are in front of the house or in front of the rings are a lot more usable than if you were to go heavy. So a lot of teams would have tried to freeze those and known you could be there and maybe tapped it and then ruined what you have going on there with that great wall of red rocks. I think if I was Team Ontario, I'd want to just peel that red rock, or sorry, that yellow rock right out and lose my red shooter. there's just, again, you're up 3 points and it's the last end. You don't need to score any. You don't need your rocks in play. And by leaving it where it is, you make it almost like a guard now for Team Quebec to come and freeze onto that same pocket that they just threw. It acts more as a guard for Team Quebec than it does as a usable rock for you.
Exactly. And here we see Team Quebec coming in here, maybe looking to tap these around a little bit or potentially freeze. Maybe a little slight overcurl, but still an all right shot.
Yeah, it keeps it in front of it, and again, not the easiest rock to remove. Some good weight control this end from Team Quebec.
Interesting, now playing the peel.
Maybe realizing how difficult it is to remove that yellow rock at the top of the 12-foot. They're just wanting to open up the rock that's actually out-counting one of their red ones. This yellow rock at the top is fifth shot, so maybe not super dangerous to them, but it is in quite a good spot here for Team Quebec. Does make the peel no problem, though, and now opens up that back one for Ontario to hit later on.
Would you ever potentially, now that you are a little bit later, would you potentially just guard your own 2 rocks?
I wouldn't do that until skip stones. I think that's a good idea for sure, to make sure that you know, you're making it hard on Quebec. They might not have a shot, but still maybe a little bit early. You want to keep eliminating those yellow rocks.
Quebec sweeping to make this rock curl. We'll tap that back. Looks like Team Ontario is still sitting 3.
Yeah, just again, maybe a little bit overthrown, and it got out into a bit of a straighter spot, and with the extra weight, just didn't curl for him. They could have actually played that as a hit and roll if they chose to. Actually eliminated one of those red rocks from play. That would bring your top yellow one in the top of the 12-foot into play, and you could still roll right in front of those red rocks. Now it's kind of a bit of a long road to get rid of all of these red rocks and still score 3.
Nice double from the Ontario team.
Great shot. Sweeper swept that the whole way. Really nice sweeping there from Team Ontario. What a big shot from that young player under pressure here. This is a huge game for Team Ontario. Both teams are kind of in a must-win situation.
Yeah, if you're Team Ontario, you definitely don't want to drop 2, 3, and 3. Very nice, precise draw from Quebec. It's a nice shot.
It's a really nice shot. Fortunately, I wonder if it might be a little bit too little too late.
Yeah.
That shot's made a couple rocks sooner. Ontario's in a lot of trouble. Ontario calling a timeout here. They'll bring out their coach.
Jeff Van Bodegum coming out to the ice here to talk with his team.
I think at this point in the end, there's only 2 rocks to come from Team Quebec. They need to score 3. If Ontario is to hit that rock at the side of the house on the right-hand side as we're looking at it here, there's no way you're going to lose this game. It might be at worst a tie, and there's still some work there to be done. So if you could hit an even, just as he's calling it, roll into the 8-foot, Even if you don't make that roll, at least eliminating that rock, it's going to be a long road now for Team Quebec. If it's not there, it can't score.
Exactly. The tough part for Team Quebec here is even if Team Ontario does hit this, it'd be hard to not leave a potential double or even just a hit, because you do have to remove all 3 of those red ones.
Exactly. Tough for Team Quebec to go somewhere where Ontario can't just get at it.
So what are some options now as Team Quebec looks to throw their first skip stone?
The trouble, I mean, it would look great to freeze another yellow one on the left-hand red rock that's biting the top of the 4-foot and sit in front of both of them. But with that red rock at the back of the 8-foot, even if you could sit in front of both of those reds, there's no way to outcount then that back red rock with your yellow shooter later on in the end if you were to kind of blast everything because of that rock that's fully in the 8-foot. Your shooter won't be fully in the 8-foot. So they kind of have to deal with that rock that's back there. I don't mind what they're calling here. However, well, if they come in there and they freeze or they maybe roll, it's tough for them. I'm not sure how they're ever going to get rid of both of those 2 red rocks. The angle's not quite there to play it on the yellow, and if they play it on the 2 reds, you have a good chance of losing your shooter or maybe jamming on the rock that you're about to throw over here on the side. But like we said earlier, at least it's going to be, behind some cover, and it might be difficult for Ontario to remove, and then they have a decision to make and will maybe leave you something. So if you try something else, you're just leaving it wide open.
This rock looks like it is fairly wide out there. Should come in here nicely. And that is a great shot from Team Quebec, now sitting 3rd and 4th shot. But with a peel from Team Ontario here on this yellow, that would be the game.
Yeah, I would have loved to have rolled that in a little bit. Force Team Ontario to make a decision. Fortunately, leaves it just about wide open.
Last rock from Skip Dillon here in the 8th end. Looking to peel this out for the win and to improve to 4 and 2. Sweeper's cleaning it, looks close.
No problems there. Ontario runs Quebec out of stones to win the game 6-3.
We had a great game this afternoon, Laura. Maybe just the steals really being the story mid-game here.
Yeah, for sure. And not so much, misses from the Quebec team, but more some really nice shots made by Team Ontario, and in particular their skip. He really had his draw weight this game and put a ton of pressure on Quebec with those last rocks. So really well done by Team Ontario with their rock placement and, bringing that weight down just to use the sweepers and manage those stones. That's something that Team Quebec didn't do quite as well this game.
I definitely... Here we have a highlight pack coming here from today's game. Here we see the hit for 2 for Quebec. Sorry, here is the hit for 2. This is Quebec coming up a little bit short on his last in the 7th end, and Ontario making the peel for the win to improve to 4-2. Here we have the score breakdown. Quebec getting 1 in the first end, followed by Ontario getting their 1 and 3 steals in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th end. Quebec picking up their 2, but Ontario getting their 2 back in the 7th end with nice rock placement to make it a 6-3 final. Thanks for joining me this afternoon, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
The next game will be Prince Edward Island versus Ontario at 6 p.m.